And she said yes, fully not comprehending what that would mean in the long run. And that was the case with us. But so we started. And what intrigued me very early was this. I teach advanced writing to college students at Southern Virginia University, and I'm often asked by students, what are the keys to good writing? And I say, well, in my kind of writing, nonfiction writing, where you're doing reporting and research and you're doing a lot of interviewing, I said, I think one of the most important traits of a good writer is that the writer must be a really good listener. And a good listener, not just with his or her ears, but with their eyes. There's a lot to be learned from watching someone's face when they answer questions. And listening is important. And here's one of the things I listened to in the very beginning of the reporting on this book. I was interested in why, Susette, why did you stand up and fight for 8 years when so many people fell out of line? And there was so much money there that you could have taken and left and all these things. And, you know, she kept saying the same thing. I wanted to stay in my house. And then I interviewed the real estate agent that sold her the house. And this is what he told me. He said, you know, honestly, Jeff, he said, I had never sold a house before. This was my first sale. He said, I just got my license. It was a career change. I just got my real estate license. So I'm the poor slob in the office on a Saturday in the summer when the phone rings. And this woman says, her name is Susette Kelo, and she'd like to look at the house on 8 East Street in New London. And he said, I honestly didn't even know where that was. And I put her on hold, got the listing sheet, and when I looked at it, I realized this house has been on the market a long time, and there's a reason for that. This house is in rough shape, it looks horrible, it's old, and it's in a neighborhood that there are no yards and no driveways, and, you know, park on the street. And he got back on the phone, when would you like to see it? And she said, today. And he said, well, let me get you some directions. And she said, well, I'm standing out in front of the house right now. And he said, oh, okay, well, I'll meet you there. And here's where it gets good. He said, when I got there, what I noticed was she was bleeding on the top of her feet. And this is what I mean about a journalist who listens. Right away, I thought, wow, what's that about? And he said, well, you know, the house hadn't been occupied for a long time. There was all kinds of heavy, thick brush around it. You couldn't even get to the front door. And he said while she was waiting for me to get there, she'd got some hand clippers out of her trunk and started cutting her way in so she could get to the door. And she was wearing, summertime, she's wearing shorts and sandals. So her feet don't have socks on them or anything. And some of these prickers and briars had cut the tops of her feet open. And he said, so when I mentioned to her, excuse me, you know, your feet, he said, didn't even faze her. I want to get in the house. And so I got up there and I unlocked the door, got the padlock off, and he said when I got inside, he said I was immediately embarrassed at the appearance of the house. And he said I immediately went to the basement and it was even worse. He said there's a big boulder in the middle of the basement, a dirt floor, and he said it was just, you know, I can't sell her this house. And he said I found everything that was wrong with the house, and then I came back up to talk her out of it. I didn't think about that. Real estate agent trying to talk someone out of buying a house. And he said, but when I got upstairs, she was in the living room, which is the room you enter the house in. And he said she had pulled back the curtains on the window, which looked like they hadn't been open in years. And he said when she did, filled the room up with sunlight, nice view of Long Island Sound and boats and stuff like that. And he said she never left the window. Made an offer on the house right there. Don't you want to see the basement? No, I don't want to see the basement. You want to come upstairs and look at the bedrooms? No. And he gave her an offer. Now, I'll tell you why those two things are important to me. Because one of the first things I was told when I started working on this book from people who didn't like Susette and the other people who fought to save their homes was that these were greedy people. And the reason they held on to their land, especially her, was because they could get more money by holding out longer. You know, he who sells first gets less. And that's what she was all about. And the other thing she was all about was fame, her 15 minutes of glory. You know, getting on the Katie Couric show and People magazine, and that's why she did this. She wanted to be, she liked the spotlight. Well, you know what? That's possible. it might be true. And so when I start out, anything's possible until you know. But when you think about someone who's cutting through with prickers on their feet and standing in the window for 30 minutes while the real estate agent's running around and looking at the water, I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't sound like a woman who's motivated by greed. It sounds like a woman who's motivated by hunger. She's hungry for something that she's never had before, and now she has a chance to get it. And what is it? It's property. It's a home. It's a home you can call your own. And when you're 40-something years old and you've raised 5 kids and you got pregnant when you were 16, that's when it starts, and you've been divorced twice, you haven't had a lot. You've done a lot for other people, raised 5 boys, took care of 2 husbands, and now you find your life, if you look at statistics, your life is halfway behind you. And you've never owned a piece of property in your life. You've never had a house that has a deed with it that carries your name on it. And suddenly it's within your grasp, and this is the place, and you get the place, and you move in. And you don't care that you got to sand the floors and putty the holes and repaint the inside, and you got to do those things because actually that just makes you love the place even more. And Susette wasn't a big diary keeper, but I was able to find a few diary entries, and this was the one that I used in the opening of the book because it was so good. It was her sitting on the front porch of this house after she'd done all those renovations herself, and she finally gets to spend the first night in the house. And she's sitting out on a rocking chair on the front deck of this house in a small urban neighborhood, in a small city, looking out over the water, and she's writing about how it's the happiest day of her life. I mean, she's finally got something that she can call her own. She's all alone. She's divorced again, kids have all moved on, but she's happy and she's content. And then she picks up the newspaper shortly after that and finds out that Pfizer Corporation, Pfizer Inc., the largest pharmaceutical in the United States, is going to build its new global research and development headquarters next door, literally the next block over. And didn't think a whole lot of it, but that's where the story, in my judgment, gets good. And I'll take you to the other side of the story now. As Susette's moving into New London, finding this house, coming out of a divorce, kind of starting life over, getting herself set up, there's another woman in New London who's doing something transformational, and her name is Claire Gaudiani. And she's the president of Connecticut College, which is the most prestigious institution in the city of New London. That and the United States Coast Guard, and they're side by side. And they occupy the 2 most pristine pieces of property in that city. They're on a hill overlooking the Thames River. Connecticut College has always been a little bit distant from the rest of the city. New London's a poor urban area, and there's nothing poor and urban about Connecticut College. It's very elite, it's very private, it's very rich. And Claire was brought in as the new president, female president, first one, and she changes everything because she is raising money like no man has ever done who's sat in the president's seat before. And that's one of the reasons she was brought there. She's very smart, she's politically connected, she's savvy, she's sexy, she's got everything going to be a colossal fundraiser for a school like Connecticut College. And then she did something else that no president had ever done. She managed to breach the gap between this college on a hill and the city, because she went into the city and she made friends with the local educators, with the ministers, with the community activists. She worked with them all, and they loved her because she could be one of them. But they knew she wasn't really one of them. She was really a PhD who was sophisticated and ran in other circles, but when she was around them, she could speak their language, and people liked that, and they liked everything about her. Well, the governor of Connecticut, a guy named John Rowland, sitting up in Hartford, he's a Republican. He's carried Connecticut for 2 consecutive races in a highly democratic state. You know about Connecticut. I'm a native of Connecticut. I mean, we're a pretty liberal state. And here's this Republican governor who's just running away with it. But the one city he's getting his clock cleaned in every time is New London. It's the most democratic city in the state of Connecticut.